Hi guys. Hi. So we're back for day 4. This is my cat Pickles. I introduced her in the intro video as Hash Brown. That was a mistake. Hash Brown's my other cat. I watched the video and couldn't believe my error. Say hi. Okay, she's got to go now. We're back. Day 4. I hope you're excited. Today we are going to talk about lifting. Okay. You've got your printables. We are checked off the previous days. We're on day 4. I'll show you what we're going to paint. Something like this, some simple little pears. It's kind of like a still life. It's kind of not. It's just sort of a simple shape because we wanted to work on a technique called lifting. So the supplies we're going to need for today are your paints, some kind of a towel or paper towel, water. I like to fill mine only up this high so we can control how much water we're getting. If you want to have a spray bottle, we'll have that. Let's see, pencil and eraser. I love a good kneaded eraser because it doesn't leave shavings on your paper and it doesn't leave marks on your paper. So it's a really nice one. You see, I'm fidgeting. Even if I pick it up, I just got to start fidgeting with it, but they're fun for kids because of that too. And a piece of paper. We need a 3" by 3" square of watercolor paper. I definitely recommend doing watercolor paper versus mixed medium or anything. The mixed media paper just gets like really bendy and it just is annoying. And then the other printable looks like this from the beginning, turns into this. So we'll go to day 4. Lifting. I'm just going to read it to start. Lifting. To get rid of excess water or paint, touch paper with a clean, dry brush and then dry your brush. You'll gain back control. You can also lift wet paint to create a highlight. So basically pointing out that there's 2 ways of doing it. First of all, you're always going to take your brush, clean it in your jar. So press, 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 right? And then wipe it on your towel, which looks like dry it. Then you take that brush and you can go onto your wet paint, press and lift. And I'll show that to you today. One reason you're going to need it is because you want to gain back control. Like maybe things like it's when it's wet and maybe it's so wet that like things have kind of moved and gotten where you don't want them. This is how you gain back control, and you think of your brush like a sponge at that point. Just bloop, you can grab it. The other thing is, let's say you wanted to paint a red cherry and you could start with like a nice medium red color, paint the whole thing, clean and dry your brush real quick, and then swipe out to get a highlight on your cherry. Then maybe you'll load in some dark red to the other side to get sort of a shadow area. So lifting, it's called lifting, and we're going to be talking about that today. Don't forget to make your space cozy. If you're not warm enough, get a sweater. If you've got a candle that you can light, let's light our candle. If you've got fresh flowers to make your space lovely. If you've already got, pencils and brushes sitting at your desk, but they're not in something cute, maybe grab your favorite coffee mug, put them in that, get a snack, get a drink, and then let's get going. We will move some of these things out of the way that we don't need yet. Get the paintbrush, candle. We are going to start with pencil and our paper and our kneaded eraser. If you want to take a screenshot of what we're going to be creating, go ahead and do that with your phone or whatever. If not, no big deal. I'll try to be showing it along the way, but I mean, you don't need it. I know some people don't even show where you're going. You just follow along on the paper, and that's kind of fun too, a little mystery. But if you want to, now is your time. And I will go ahead and remind you again that the most important thing when we are sketching is to press lightly with the tip of your brush. If you find that you are pinching hard like this, real tight, pinching at the point like we learned in school, you might also be pressing hard. So try to hold your pencil kind of carefully. Kids are the ones who usually have the most trouble with this, but any of us, All right, I don't know why I zoomed out. We're going back in. So for a sketch, if there's any sort of a line that I can find, usually it's a horizontal line, but I'll start with that. Otherwise, we start with the largest shapes we can find, and today we kind of have both. I think let's go ahead and start with the line first. And one thing that's great when you have a reference, you look at your reference, and that's what this one is today. And we'll look, where does that line end and where does it start? And we will put dots on our paper to try to find those. So let's see, I'll put my thumb down. I mean, my hands might be bigger than yours, I don't know. But I'm gonna put my thumb down, and it's basically after I'm pushing my thumb, so it's like fat, right? And then I'm putting a dot right there. So same thing on this paper, and put a dot. Somewhere near there is great. Then on this one, like, look, it goes to the corner, but does it go to the corner? No, it goes a little bit above it. So I'm putting a dot here. And you're pressing lightly in case you want to change it. And then I'm holding my pencil this way. Notice my hand is like this, and I'm going to try to connect my dots and look towards the dot you're going to. This is just practice on straight lines is what we're doing. But we're taking this one, and I'm going to get it kind of, see, I started it. Sometimes I start them both and then I connect them. But if you don't get it right the first time, don't forget about this guy. We're using both pencil and eraser. Okay. And now what's cool about pears is they're made up of shapes, just as most things are. And we can see that within this pear, there's a big sort of oval, right? It's kind of a tall circle. And then maybe there's another one or like a tube-shaped one on top of it, and they overlap. So I want to find, where's it going to start? Let's look. This one's bigger. This one's smaller. And if I were to find the center of this paper, it would probably be around here. So the center of the large pear is to the right of that. I'll put a dot where I want it to kind of go, like begin, you know, so I don't get too far down on my paper. And maybe I'll even put a dot where I want it to land up here. I'm just looking, okay, I want space for my stem, so maybe something like that. And I'll take this one, and I want this sort of large oval. Pressing lightly on your pencil. Now, if you want it fatter at the bottom, great, widen it up. That's our oval on the bottom. And now this will be sort of like a tube-shaped oval on the top. And I'm already thinking, okay, something needs to change. I think I'll take this one taller, and then it's going to work out a little bit better. I'm going to add this one, and look what starts to happen. You take this and follow it, and curve it. You'll follow this one and curve it. And then you have this really lovely pear shape. What I like about this is that you can see the shapes that are in it, and so that helps you sort of understand the shape yourself. If I were to continue to sketch it, I could kind of, and don't do this, we're not going to do this, but like this is sort of the shape of this pear, and it's showing some roundness, and that also gives you the lines to follow, right? We don't actually need the lines, but it's helpful to understand them. So I'm going to go ahead and take my eraser now and erase everything within my pear shape. You can always pinch your kneaded eraser to get it smaller, fit into tighter spaces. And here we go. You can lighten it up if you want, or you can just wait. But we don't want that line going through it, right? The pear is in front of the wall or table or whatever it is behind us here. And then we've got one more. So we're going to do the same thing again. I like when we have things that are repetitive because it gives us a chance to continue to like just practice the same thing. This one is a little bit taller. Let's look at this space between. Look how wide it is. And look at what shape it creates. It's like a triangle, but like a curvy one. It's like the tail of a ghost. Doesn't it look like it? Listen, we have to make up things to help our brain understand sometimes. So that's why I say it. And look how much taller this is. I could maybe lay not quite my full finger here to see the difference, right? Between the base of this one and the base of this one. Somewhere near there. Put a little mark. If you've got anything to help figure that out, that's always great. But for today, we'll look at this. Now look, the bottom oval of this one lands like this far above our line. That's our horizontal line, and it's this far above it. These are all little cues for us. Love it. This one's going to be like a tall, skinny tube. It's too tall for me already. I'm taking it down. And remember, like, if this was our oval and this was our oval, this is how we find the little dip, is just connecting them. And I'm going to get in here and erase what I do not want, and you'll do the same. So remember, we don't want that line, that diagonal line going through. It's only day 4, but I'm having fun. I hope you are too. I think anytime we get into creation, time for ourselves, it's just good for us. Okay, I like these. Let's look up here. We've got these curves. They're like a comma, maybe, curve to it. You can put a dot where you want it to end. We'll take this right from the top. Let's not worry about getting low into it unless you want to. Curve it over. And this one, I went that way. What happens if I go to the right? Let's find out. I'll do it to the right because we'll be able to compare these two later. But whichever one you want. Stuff like this, I like to practice lots of times when I'm learning. So then I just tell myself, oh, this one doesn't matter because I'm going to do 5 of them and I'll pick my favorite one. So I am lightening up my pencil work. I'm going to go right back over it. So I didn't want to like get rid of it, but my lines were kind of like fat or dark at this point, and I'm lightening them up. It does not matter if you see your pencil lines later, unless it matters to you. That's kind of cute. I don't know. I like that curve. That's fine. So this is done. Do you see that on this large pear over here, we have a highlight? I mean, if you want to do that, you can, but what we're practicing today is lifting. So if you ever wanted to keep a highlight like this, you just avoid the paper, because remember on day 1, we talked about how it's light to dark. And so if you want anything to stay white, you need to preserve it. So if you want to highlight like that, you can, but I would say for today, you could do a small one, but I'm going to skip it. I say let's skip it because do you see this one is completely made of lifting? Okay, we want to practice that lifting today. So I think we're done with our sketch. Make sure you like yours. We'll move our pencil and our eraser out of the way, like cleaning when we cook. You guys are going to get sick of hearing me say the same things over and over again. And here is our palette for the day. We're going to start by mixing up some puddles over here. Now let's observe. I like this one. The colors are soft and they're kind of lovely, but they don't have to be these colors. You are absolutely in charge of what colors you choose every day and every time you sit down to do art. What I do like about it is that we see sort of softness in the center with some color around the edges, including darkness around this side over here to the right, because we're going to be placing our highlight on the left side, lighter on the left. You don't need to know anything about that. We'll talk about it another day. But the darkest part we're putting on the right today. And that's just kind of, if you think of it that way, it might help you. And we're going to focus on the pears first, and then we'll focus on the background afterwards. The colors don't matter. If you like one of these better than the other, great. I think to get the effect that we're doing, you'll have an easier time if you do like the pear on the left, where the color you're placing is a little darker, because then when you lift it, you'll see more of a distinction. I did lift on both, but you can't notice it as much on this one. So let's get into our colors. We will grab, okay, I always forget, but not today, this little spray bottle if you've got it. Give your paints a little spray. 6 or 8 sprays, somewhere in that zone. You just want them to be kind of glossy. This is a really nice paint set because the colors come off so easily and it's vibrant. There's a really good pink up here. There's a good teal. But when you do this, it makes them like even like softer and sort of easier to come off. So it's a nice way to start. And I'm pulling my towel over here, getting my water close by, and we're going to start by making up puddles on this side of our palette. So this green we want to start with, it's a more of a yellowish green than a bluish green, if that's helpful to you. So depending on what you have in your set, if you're starting with mine, I'll start with the bottom right green. I took a wet brush, swirled it around on my paint, and swiped it onto my palette. I'll go right back into my water and back, and now this is a puddle. If you don't have this palette, you might mix a green with a yellow and see what you think. Or just do a regular green, that's fine too. Green with brown would be good too. You could do green with the teeniest bit of red, but we're not going to get into that today. We'll talk about that when we get into the color wheel later on. So I've got that color green. What else? Let's get like a dark yellow of some sort. Now, if you like, you can do any colors you want on here. So you do not need to listen to me. You don't have to stick with me. You can do anything, but I just want to create some that I like. So I just took yellow and some brown and I mixed those together to get this color. I don't want these puddles to get too big. So this one might already be a little bit too big. We'll keep our water kind of under control here. This will be kind of the same as yesterday when we did our flowers, I'll just reference them. When we did these flowers, right, and we do this first layer with wet paint and we load in this color bleed, that we need more control here. And on our pears today, we'll put in our first color and load in our second color. So reminder that on those extra colors, we want to limit our water. Okay, so that's 2 colors. I like this dark red a lot. So I'm going to grab, I don't know what red I'm going to grab. I might mix a few. So for this, you may want to dip just the tip of your brush into your water and start with these small puddles. Doesn't matter what color you pick. Just play with it. Let's get some brown. And yeah, I'm just going to mix up some puddles, see what you like. Maybe some orange, some of that dark orange. I like to have options over here, and plus then you can see this palette together and then you see, do I like it? Is it missing anything? I feel like we're good, but don't be limited to this. If you want to add in more colors, you can add from here. So a reminder, we're putting down wet paint, adding paints into it, but we'll focus on lifting today. Okay, so you already kind of learned a little bit yesterday about this process. I think we're off to a pretty good start here. So I'm going to leave that. You do want to make your puddles first because watercolor is about timing. And if you have to mix puddles while you do it, you are probably not going to get the same effect that you could get if you didn't have to spend time over here. Okay, let's get this light over. I have so much lighting around this desk and everywhere, but man, it's tricky to get it good enough. So I hope you can see. We're going to start with, let's start with this one on the left actually, because I think it's easy. You can see it here and kind of compare it. So that means I will dip my brush. I'm going to dip the first third of my brush into my water. If you already have a brush full of water, I would say clean it off, dry it off, dip the first third of your brush, grab some green paint. You may want to watch this before you do it. Okay, I'm going to start by, remember the tip of my brush goes along the edges and I'm pressing to the belly of my brush. I can already tell I have too much water. I'll address that in a moment. Okay, so this is that. I'm going to use lifting to get rid of that excess water. So this brush, I'm going to wipe on my towel. I'm going to come back and I'm going to just lift some of that up, wipe it on my towel again. I can clean my brush and dry it. Now I want to lift out a highlight. So watch what I'll do. I cleaned my brush. I dried it. I'll show you. Cleaned it, dried it like this. I come to my wet paint. You see that light reflecting? Okay. And then I will press and lift, and I'm following the curve. It's easier if it's a little bit darker of paint. Let's see if I can change it and make you see it even better. I just darkened up my paint. I'm going to do it again, so ignore the lift, okay? Here we go. First, I need to make sure that my water isn't puddling or pooling anywhere, so I may have to lift to get rid of. So this is when I'm touching it with my brush to get rid of paint that's lifting. Then I will take my brush, dry it again, and swipe right here on the left side, press. I'll follow the curve and lift. Now what's going to happen, you see it filling in already because this is wet paint and it's like, oh sweet, I got a space to go. So I'll lift again. I'll press and lift. I'll dry my brush on the towel and I'm watching. Now, I think getting better and better at watercolor is observing what you're doing. You can't like look away forever because something's happening here. I lifted it, what now, 4 times and dried my brush again. I will lift again. What I want to do at the same time though, and this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, is I want to get into these darker colors and add them around the edges. And it also has to be wet for those things to happen. So I'm adding some of this here, and I'll probably teach you what happens if it dries, because if it dries, you're not going to get the same effect, but you can add a little water back. Thing is, everything with watercolor is better the first time you do it. If you have to go back and adjust it, you're going to see it. And that's why watercolor is kind of a jerk, because it's all about the drying time, and it's transparent. So you see everything that's going on. So I'm just adding in colors while it's wet. Look at where I lifted it. It's kind of coming back in. So I'm drying my brush again, pressing and lifting, and I'm going to leave it now. What it is, it is. I could add more darkness on this right side, and that would help really sort of accentuate that this is a highlight and shadow is over here. But this is only day 4, guys, and I feel like this is a lot for us already. So if your colors did not bleed how you wanted them to, it was too dry. It's tricky because you're working on two things at one time here. You're trying to lift up this one and watch that it doesn't take over, and you're trying to load in these other colors while that green paint is wet. It's kind of hard. I hope it's not too hard. So what we're going to do now is, remember, this is wet, and I want to go to this one. So I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to dry it. I don't want you to be overwhelmed with this part. Do 30 of them. You know, this does not happen with 2 pears. You get better and better because you're watching what's happening. Okay. So now I'm going to get my dryer out. I don't need it much, so I'll just do it right here. Does anybody else dry their hands a little bit when they're cold? It's a lovely little heater for that. Or hold on to your candle too. All right. If you need more time, just pause the video. No big deal. And I'll try to do this one a little slower, but what you're realizing, I think, is that we're really, it's about the drying time. And so that's why we sometimes do have to work quickly. I'm going to look at my puddles again and see what I got. This one is barely anything, and I want to add some more to it. So I'll do that now. Get it darkened up a little. Just want to make sure that everything's ready to go because we do have that timer of the drying. So getting my puddles refreshed. Ooh, I got some darkness in that one. We'll see what happens. Remember, on this one, we do want some darkness over on that right side if you can. So the challenge is, when you're loading in colors on this one, get it dark. Now, notice that this dark brown did not travel very far. If it was wetter, it would have pulled it all the way over. Okay, but if we have less water, it travels less far. So something to look at. This is kind of hard, and you guys are doing awesome. I just know it. Okay. All right, I like my colors. So I'm not going to worry about making it exactly the same as this pear. All that matters is that we start with a lighter color, we swipe out a highlight, and we load in some darker colors. Okay. I will grab, this time I'm going to grab this yellow color. I'm going to first put it all over, and I might have too much water, but that's okay. You can do too much water if you plan on using the technique of lifting. It's awesome because it gives you more freedom already. So I want to see the light reflecting. I want to maybe see the texture of the paper through there, but if it's puddling or pooling anywhere, I probably need to grab that through lifting with my brush. And now it's all wet. I'm going to do 2 things. One, I'm going to start with my first part of a highlight on the left side, pressing and lifting. Okay, and now right away I want to get into that dark brown and see if I can get some of that going over here. I'm putting the tip of my brush into my water and grabbing more dark brown paint. Remember that on this part, we are really limiting how much water we've got. I want even darker, so I'm going back. I'm grabbing more paint on my brush and just sort of touching it there. I'll clean out my brush now. I'm going to get into my little puddle of red. I know there's not too much water, or else I'll lose control, and I don't want to lose control. Now it's still wet. What are we going to do? I'm cleaning my brush, I'm drying my brush, and I will press and lift because I know that it's going to keep trying to fill in. There are other ways to keep highlights. Remember, just leave the paper wet and paint around it. Absolutely. This one's hard to see today, though. I'm going to darken this one up, too. I don't think you can see well enough what's happening with the lifting, so I will add some darkness. Cool color, right? That's kind of a mix of yellow and green, I guess. I dried my brush. I'm pressing and lifting. I'll lift even lower. Now you can see it more. You can get back control, or you can add that highlight. Usually we wouldn't connect it here because we would kind of have one up top and one down below. But that's what lifting is for. And what I'll do, because I think this one is a little bit harder to see it, we're learning about it, but like watching it is tricky. I will make sure we get lifting in our other videos as well. For today, play with this paint and have fun with it. Don't worry about the highlight too much. If you can remember now and again, just dry your brush and come back at it. Feels like you're fighting for control, right? You are, but don't forget that you can win that fight and then do cool stuff that you couldn't do before. So get a little bit of orange in there. Now, the time to stop is when it doesn't blend anymore. That means that it's dried, and then you're not going to like how it looks as much. If you were never getting the blend, you didn't have enough water. I am able to play for so long right now because it's wet. If yours is dried, you're done. But I love the idea that wet on wet, that's what this practice is called, this portion is called. You don't have to be done until it's dry, which means you're not locked in, and it gives you freedom to play. Okay, cool. I just added some orange, and I like that too. Now my highlight's gone. What a bad video about lifting, huh? I dried my brush again. And now that it's drying, it'll start to stay. So I'm going to do it a couple times in a row. And every time I swipe, I am drying my brush on my towel, trying to get rid of any excess water. And this painting will be better because of these highlights. So like, even though this is rough, it's worth it. Okay, gives us a little bit of depth. I'll show you lifting. You know what I'm going to do real quick? I'm going to show you lifting in another way so we at least get the technique down a little bit better. You're going to like this one. Okay, so what I'm doing is imagine this is a cherry. I'm going to do like this. I need to make sure that there's no extra water. Like, get all that out of there, right? Now I will press and lift like this, and I'll also take my brush at the tip of my brush and get a bunch of this dark red and put it over here. And it helps you to really see the highlight that you lifted up when you get a really dark color on the other side. Makes sense. And since this is wet, you could play in it and add another color. So we will get into this technique more, and you'll understand that this learning about lifting, it's helpful and it's cool. I promise it's cool. Okay, let's give this a dry and we'll get to the background. Lifting can also happen after it's dry. So with your brush, like let's say you clean it and dry it and you know it's a little damp, and you can do it like this. Sometimes you just have to go over and over again. But what's nice is at that point, the water isn't creeping back in, right? So, but it's just, it has like more harsh edges if you do it this way. All right, let's get to our background. I love what happens with this contrast of blue. I'm using this one. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th down from the bottom center. And I'm going to add some water because I remember water makes our colors lighter. And then we're going to just kind of turn our paper, and I want you to think about moving a puddle around. We're just doing this bottom part. My pears are fully dry. Tip of my brush will run along the edges, and I will pull this puddle, and I'm going methodically. Notice I started on one side. Think about it like left to right. Like keep this going, like touch what was done and keep it moving. Now my paper's all bent up because it's already had to absorb a lot of water, and that's okay. You just got to work with it. Just kind of hold it where it's dry. Take that tip of your brush right along the edges, and you'll fill it in like this. Now, of course, we have to dry the top. You could leave the top white. I think that looks super cool, but today we're gonna fill in the top too. So I'm gonna dry this real quick. I'm gonna have to watch this video and see how annoying that sound was for you guys. That's why I do it off camera a lot. Okay, the color that we used up here is sort of like a lemony yellow color. So I'm gonna create a puddle before I do it and make sure that I like it. I think it's like a light yellow with a little bit of green in it, and then water to keep it light. And once you like it, turn your paper, and then same thing. This is a flat wash is what we're learning, but we'll learn it on another day. So don't get ahead. I'm just kidding. You can get ahead. Okay, so now I'm taking this same thing. I'm already kind of running out of paint though. See, that's what you don't want because this is drying. Okay, and I'm going to take it and move it to the right. The reason I'm touching it a bunch is I'm trying to pull the water over. But we're going left to right. Remember, lift up light on the tip of your brush when you get like close to things, like tight spaces you need to get in. And we're going to move this down. Keep that puddle moving all the way till you get over here. And there you go. Now, see how it's puddling and pooling here? I will clean my brush and dry it, and I will what? Oh my gosh, the word of the day, I'll lift it. Touch it, lift it, dry your brush. Here it is again. Touch it, lift it, dry your brush. You just kind of don't want to interrupt it more than you have to, you know, because you do see things as it starts to dry. But I think this looks great. It is dripping a little bit right here. That's hard to avoid sometimes. Now I'll take the dryer and dry it up. If your paper curls or bends, you can take it and gently roll it the other direction. And now we're almost done. We just have these little stems, and we're going to add a shadow to them as well. So we are wrapping it up. I cleaned out my brush. I took the tip of my brush, and I'm going to find some kind of a dark brown. So I'm really limiting my water because what a tiny space this is, right? Gonna get this in here, maybe a little bit of black into it even. I'll clean my brush and dry it again because I want to control what I'm doing. And I will take this bit and we're gonna run it down those stems. So maybe remembering what we did on day 2 with that lightness of your stems. Just run that right along. And we will... So hard to get the camera to focus. There we go. We'll run it right along here too. And I'll show you something you can do if you want a little bit of a shadow. Well, this is going to dry quickly because there's very little water. And so I'm not going to worry about drying it, but I do want to show you that, like, these are our 2 from today. See how different yet similar they are. They both have highlights on them. And this one, by pressing into it as it was drying, I got almost as strong as a highlight as this where I left the paper white, but obviously not quite as much. And I love how they turned out. The stems turning to the right versus both directions, adorable both ways. And then I have this one that I had already done. And I just wanted to show you that I took my felt tip pen and I just added some details over the top. Goodness gracious. All right, there we go. And I think that's cute that way. I liked it, but I think that's like absolutely like your choice and your preference. Like, which way do you like it? And if you do like it this way, see how I made it a little bit lumpy on purpose? I think that was cute. And then I added some little dots as well. And I went right around the stems. So if you wanted to do it, should we do it? All right, if you like yours the way it is, leave it. Sometimes that's really hard to do. It's always like, oh, let's see what happens. If you do 2 of them, pick your favorite and then try it on the other one. I think that's a nice way to do it. I think it's fun to bump my pen around a little bit, make it imperfect. Total personal preference. You could even leave, let me see if I can get you in here. You could even leave, see, I've had the benefit of watching a lot of people do their sketching. You could leave and put a couple dots here and keep that line moving. Like, watch, interrupt it. Cute, huh? And I'll keep it coming around a little bit of bumps, a couple flat marks, and we'll see what we think. And then I'm going to do my pen only to the right of, okay, 2 choices. You can do it just to the right of the stem, and that gives you a shadow. Or you can do it here, like I did on this one, and go around it. Oh, no, I like this one better. We're going to do it. So I'm widening it up at the top, like it's right where it got plucked, right? And then I'm doing this. Then I just wanted to add some dots. So I like them in little groups, uneven groups. And usually I don't put them where the highlight is. I'll put them somewhere else on the body of it, probably more in the shadows. And then you'll go ahead and sign your work. Maybe I'll sign right along my pears. I like this. The bottom's good too. Do you remember, I don't think I did it yesterday, but my little stamp. I I probably should, but listen, I'm not going to be consistent with it. I just know I'll forget. So here's my stamp. You should order yourself a stamp. It's so fun. And then I do have the date one. But anyways, you can put the date on it if you'd like to. So we've got this done. This was today's. I would love to see your work. Like if you want to share it, you can do hashtag Audrey's Art Club. This is me finding a scrap piece of paper, and I'll write it for you if it's helpful. Hashtag AUDREYSARTCLUB. And you can post these on my Facebook page. And that's where you're able to leave photos. You can't do them on YouTube. Wouldn't that be cool if you could, though? But anyways, that's that. This was day 4. You did it. You're rock stars. I hope you're learning a lot about watercolor and having a good time. I will see you back here for day 5 tomorrow.